Robert Preston, and the host for the workshop, Earl Wrightson.
Our guest today is one of the most versatile actors in the theater, with the kind of vitality that electrifies the stage no matter what role he plays. For years, he literally mesmerized audiences on Broadway as the slick, fast-talking music man. And now he's currently dominating the stage, and I'm not a fast-talking music man, as you can see, as America's beloved statesman Benjamin Franklin in the musical hit Ben Franklin in Paris. It gives me very great pleasure to introduce Mr. Robert Preston.
I'll come over to your shows just for your introductions. Yeah.
All right. I know that Ben Franklin was a great phrase maker. If you will pardon a paraphrase, greater love hath no man for his art than to part with his hair to play a part. Would that be all right?
Yes.
Tell me something, because I know you have a wealth of hair. Well, what was the necessity for the shaving the head when
Well,
there were so many wigs today?
During the research, I saw about 150, 160 portraits of Ben by many different artists. And the only thing that they had in common, they all looked different. The only thing they had in common was that he had an awful lot of face to wash. Went right back to here. So that was the one way we couldn't cheat. So I knew I'd have to wear the bald wig. And our Ben, even though he's 69 and 70 years old in the show, is so active that I was afraid to wear something that covered the hair. If it popped up in the middle of the first act, I'd be in trouble, and there would go the show.
Yeah.
And anyway, well, I tried a very short crew cut, and that didn't work, so I shaved it. And it's kind of fun taking a shower in the morning. And also at night, wearing the wig, you saw a picture, I noticed. I'm not even aware of having a wig on, and I've been an actor for a long time, worn a lot of wigs, and they're very uncomfortable. This is very comfortable.
You have to shave every day, don't you, to keep the...
Yes,
it down.
I've shaved before the theater, so it, the barber that first did it said, he said, I knew you had a lot of hair.
Your hats come down over your ears these days?
I've got new hats. I never wore one with hair. He said, Bob, your hair is growing while I'm shaving it.
Well, we have the answer to that, but we have some other questions for you, sir. Yes?
Oh, Mr. Preston, as both Ben Franklin and Music Man, you are hailed by the critics as the perfect choice for the role. Yet the two characters could hardly be more different. Well, how could you be just right for the two roles?
I don't know. I'm glad they thought I was. Actually, I hate to say this because you always look for something different in a role, but old Ben and Harold Hill did have something in common. They were both great salesmen. The only difference was that Ben was on the up and up. He was selling legitimate stuff. He was selling the country. And not short. So I think that's what they saw in the similarity between the two. Ben was sort of a con artist. You had to be in those days.
I suppose any diplomat has to be in a way.
I think even today, don't you?
Yes. Yes, dear.
Mr. Preston, what started your interest in acting?
Well, it's been so long now that I forget. I was 10, and a neighbor that we had when I was a child thought that I would look enough like him to play him at the age of 10 in a show that we were doing. And so I did. And that led to something else, and it led to something else. And then in those interim years when I went to high school, which I would do between jobs, we had a marvelous drama teacher whose great love was Shakespeare. And he had such a love for it that you couldn't help feeling his enthusiasm. And so immediately upon graduating from high school, I went with a Elizabethan repertory company, Pacia Power. That's Tyrone Power's mother. Ty at the time was with Catherine Cornell's company. And then when that folded, there was no place else to act.
You played Julius Caesar at age something like 17, did you not?
I saw that you said 17. It was actually 16.
Really?
Yeah, in a professional company. I think that's about as young as Julius can be done professionally. But I had my growth, and my voice had already changed almost entirely. So I got by with it.
I think that led to some personal appearances in parking lots, didn't it?
Yes, well, which is a step up. But even at 16, you have to eat.
What were you, a parking lot attendant while you as an odd job?
Yes, Santa Anita had started up out there, and our old high school coach was doing the hiring and firing at Santa Anita, Jim Tunney. He's now the chief steward for this state of California. And so we're on the cleanup crew in the morning, park cars in the afternoon, and this is where I met some fellows who were doing the same thing I was doing and also working at the Pasadena Playhouse, which was just a couple of miles away. So there being no other place to act, I went there for the next couple of years. And it was while acting at the Playhouse that I signed my Paramount contract at the ripe age of 19 then.
Yes, dear.
A wasted life.
Well, Mr. Preston, it's very common for an actor to star in Broadway and then go to pictures, but you started with pictures first. Well, how did this happen?
Well, I just told you I didn't start with pictures first, dear. All this acting that I've been talking about was in the theater. Of course, then,
Well,
you see,
I
I know what she means.
I think she means your prominence was first in pictures,
Well,
wasn't it? Or what?
we have yes, of course. But we have a terrible situation here. We're the only country of any size in the world where the capital of the motion picture business and the capital of the theater 3,000 miles apart. And you just have to make up your mind from season to season where you're going to work. In London and Paris and Berlin and Rome, they all work in the movies during the daytime and go to their theaters at night, which is ideal. But we can't. And so you have to go where your greatest love is. And it's not strange. Many people who are quite successful in pictures, you find them coming back. Richard Burton wants to get back as often as he can. Hank Fonda does the same thing. Right on down. The only one who doesn't do it is Marlon Brando. He found that, and I think truly so, he found that the motion picture is the best medium for him. Because he doesn't like to, as he calls it, get stuck in a long role, playing it over and over. He'll give about 2 performances a week, and then the other 6 will be terrible. But when he gives his one good performance in the movie, that's it. And he's through it. Fortunately, for us, there is a medium for him to work in because he's great.
Your early movie career was with Paramount, right?
Yes.
I recall that you were very mean in an awful lot of pictures. Is that correct?
Well, you know, I like to take this as a compliment. Back in those days, if you'll permit me,
Sure.
in those early days, I think that the star of the motion picture, by and large, was the person who couldn't act very well. And so they surrounded him with people playing the heavies and the comedians and the rest of it. And they were supposed to carry the ball. It was terrible, too, because we'd do a scene for this particular star. We'd do it 28, 30 times, and he would get something wrong, or she would get something wrong each time. And God help you if you made a mistake on the 31st one and he got it right,
Yes.
you know? Because they'd print it anyway.
Well, just to make a real big jump now to Broadway, first of all, what were your first roles on Broadway? I mean, after...
I replaced Jose Ferrer in 20th Century and had good fun with that. Because I had done comedy as a kid before Paramount, and Paramount signed me to play comedy, but then they never let me do it. And so this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to show that I could do that. Because if you get typed in any particular role, it's your own fault. This we find out. Of course, you get very rich doing it, but you don't get a great deal of pleasure as an actor.
You've been quoted, and if I'm wrong, correct me, as saying...
You're never wrong, Earl Wrightson.
Yeah.
Earl Wrightson. Wrightson.
Yeah, wrongson. Did you once say that, and it's not true, but did you once say that you couldn't sing and you couldn't dance?
I still say that.
You're a musical comedy star.
No, I'm an actor. The only things I've done on the musical comedy stage are The Music Man, and now this Ben, and one Pancho Villa that didn't come into town. We closed it in Philadelphia. But they were all 3 acting roles. And the songs and the dances were an extension of the character that you played. Almost everything that I sprechgesang in Ben Franklin comes from something that Ben would say in dialogue. And the same with Harold Hill, his salesman pitch. And Pancho, exactly the same. Now, the dancing, of course, it's stylized and it's done in the musical theater, but every character that you play has to have his own way of moving. This is the first thing that you reach for. I played Joe Ferguson in The Male Animal for a year on Broadway, and Joe trotted wherever he went. He was always ready to go back in the football game, whirling Joe Ferguson.
Yeah.
And other roles, you're stolid and the feet never leave the ground. Well, Harold Hill, that whole thing evolved, his movement evolved. He was always ready to hop that fast freight train out of town.
Yes. I remember you're slithering around on stage in Albatross
Well, that's right. He walked another way. That's why we couldn't have...
stocking feet all the time.
But he was perpetual motion. He was in...
Yes.
But that's a straight play. But he looked like a dancer.
Yes.
But that's because he could never look anyone straight in the eye. So he's always moving to get around behind him where the knife can go in a little faster.
Mr. Preston, your current show, Ben Franklin in Paris, is this reasonably authentic as regards his time in Paris?
Oh, we have a few anachronisms. History itself doesn't completely lend itself to the musical theater. For instance, the balloon ascension that we have, actually the brothers Montgolfier made their first ascension 8 years beyond our date. Mm-hmm. But who's to say that someone as marvelous as Ben didn't get him to put it up 8 years earlier for a test flight, you know? And also, Ben was involved in Paris with 6 or 7 different ladies. And you can't have that in the musical stage. We have the lovely Swedish star, Missoula Salert, playing a combination of all of those 6 or 7 ladies in her one countess.
You couldn't have given us a better cue.
Don't you think I knew what I was doing?
Miss